The Russia collusion hoax has been brought to its knees, and we have much more that will be coming in the days and weeks and months to follow. That I can assure you. The corrupt, the compromised, that guy, the congenital liar, everything I've been telling you about him is true. He is now facing public embarrassment. He may just not know it yet. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has been exonerated. By the way, Judge Emmett Sullivan, Your Honor, where are you? It's time to let this man go free. We need to hear from you. And the biggest news is former President Barack Obama, as of yesterday, has now been implicated in what is the biggest abuse and power corruption scandal in American history. So, Barack, Joe, what did both of you know, and when did you know it? We need to hear from you. And coming up, we'll show you all of the explosive new developments from the Intel Committee documents, hundreds and hundreds of pages of interviews that Adam Schiff has been hiding from the public because they reveal all of his lies. We're going to review how the Pravda propaganda arm of the Democratic media, that is the Democratic Party, the media mob, Socialist State TV, how they are reacting defensively to this week's incredible news. Spoiler alert, the hysteria has now reached new heights because they have been exposed. Also, we have a full report on this horrific shooting in Georgia. You've seen the videotape. We have a lot of questions tonight. But first, we begin on this Friday night. The corrupt, the compromised, the congenital liar, Adam Schiff. He is a national disgrace and even worse than I thought. Thanks to acting National Intel Director Rick Grenell. Thanks to the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, we have definitive proof of Schiff's malicious dishonesty in the form of roughly 6,000 pages, newly released sworn testimony he's been hiding from the American people. This comes from the Intel Committee's 2017 Russia investigation. These are the interviews that were taken under oath. We have a complete timeline of Schiff's unethical behavior, his outright lying on all of the media, and we begin. Let's start with the date, July 17, 2017. It is on that day that Adam Schiff listened to Obama's Director of National Intelligence, that guy in the middle, James Clapper. And he testified under oath saying, quote, "I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting or conspiring with the Russians to meddle with the election." On October 13th, same year, Adam Schiff heard from Obama official Samantha Power, who testified she has no evidence of collusion. Quote, "I'm not in possession of anything." On September 8th, 2017, Susan Rice telling Adam Schiff, quote, "To the best of my recollection, there wasn't anything smoking, and I don't recall intelligence that I would consider evidence to that effect." On November 3rd, 2017, former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, concluding to Adam Schiff, there was no evidence of collusion. But on March 13th, 2018, just 4 months after those four officials and others testified there was zero evidence of any Trump-Russia collusion, the congenital liar Schiff got in front of a camera and, of course, not questioned. He was held up as some kind of hero by the mob and the media, the socialist Pravda of our day, and said there was significant evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. He knew it was a lie. He had all the testimony proving it was a lie. But this is what he told the American people. Take a look.
The American people need to know whether the Russians still have something they can hold over the president's head, the president of the United States. So our work is far from done. I could certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion between the campaign and Russia.
Now, let's not forget, there was only one guy who thought he was talking to a Russian, and that was Schiff. And you have a guy that was pranking. That's right, Adam Schiff. Thought it was a real Russian. We have compromising material, Donald Trump. What's the nature of the compromise? Naked pictures. Does Vladimir know? Yeah, but the court, Vladimir no compromising material and Donald Trump. That's him on tape. He thought he was colluding with a Russian, he thought. A year later, by the way, March 24, 2019, there's Schiff repeating his lies as he had all throughout this time period, all over the media. They never, ever challenged him. They were giddy with this. Welcome back, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you trashing Trump. What news do you have today? What lies did you tell us? And they let him get away with it. This time, ABC News. Take a look.
You have said, though, in the past there was significant evidence of collusion. How do you square that with Robert Mueller's decision not to indict anyone?
And there is significant evidence of collusion, and we've set that out time and time again.
Hey, George, you going to call him out for the lie? You going to invite him back and say, why did you lie to us? And get this, on April 7, 2019, after the Mueller report found no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, that was the fourth investigation, Schiff continued to lie. 4 investigations, he's still lying. He goes on fake Jake News Tapper's Sunday show that nobody watches and said that there was ample evidence of collusion. This is why it's CNN fake news and why people chant CNN sucks. Take a look.
What I've said on your show and others, Jake, for over a year now is that, yes, there's ample evidence of collusion in plain sight, but that is not the same thing as proof of a criminal conspiracy beyond a reasonable doubt.
That is the guy that represented the entire Democratic Party and the House Intel Committee. Russia, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. A proven liar, a disgusting sociopath, and the congenital liar Schiff. He damaged this country with all of these lies, one hoax after another, all his conspiracy theories, the mob and the media. You people in the mob, you are his willing accomplices. You've been his dupe the whole way. Lie after lie, Russian lies, Ukrainian lies, Schiff show lies, and he's leading his party and the mob into what are uncharted waters that literally threaten the constitutional order of this country. Just take a look at this creepy-looking lunatic who will do and say anything to smear, slander, besmirch Donald Trump and thrust himself, of course, into the lights of the cameras, in the limelight. This lying that you just witnessed, it is only the tip of the iceberg. For example, I could go on the whole show. November 15, 2017, Schiff defended Hillary's bought and paid for, even the New York Times now recognizes, likely Russian disinformation from the get-go because the Russians knew Steele was feeding it to Hillary. They were helping Hillary. They were creating the chaos Devin Nunes warned Obama and Biden about in 2014, and they didn't listen to. And he said that much of the documents, meaning the dossier, had proved true. That was another lie. December 19th, 2017, during McCabe's sworn testimony, the former deputy FBI director could not point to one single claim, not one. This is McCabe. One, not one, in Steele's dossier that he knew was true and accurate, and all of that is in this document dump yesterday, but thanks to Rick Grenell and Attorney General Barr. In fact, he also testified, McCabe did, he didn't know if the Steele material on Carter Page, he didn't know if any of it was true. None of it was true. This was the material that was used starting in October of 2016 as the basis for 4 separate FISA applications. Even McCabe admitted in sworn testimony, no dossier, no warrant. They said it wasn't true. It's in his testimony. In February 2018, Schiff authored a memo claiming there's absolutely no FISA abuse whatsoever, despite Congressman Devin Nunes, who told the country the truth. Schiff lied, Nunes told the truth, warning to the country. Nunes was telling all of us the truth. This guy was telling us lies even when he had testimony that was telling him they were lies. The DOJ's Inspector General, he was telling the truth. Steele's dossier was Russian disinformation all along. Schiff lied to socialist comrades in the Democratic Party. They helped him lie, and the mob and the media acted as his PR staff. This is a revolting but clear and present danger, and that remains to our constitutional republic, the rule of law, equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. They must be held accountable. The dossier's contents were not verified. He knew he was lying. They told him it's not true. It is a disgusting, despicable, revolting lie by the biggest liar we've ever witnessed. Even Christopher Steele himself, he couldn't stand by his own dossier, as we've been telling you in an interrogatory under the threat of perjury in Great Britain. So you have this corrupt, compromised, congenital liar, Adam Schiff, not only a national embarrassment, what he's doing is a threat to our national security. And he was helped, and literally the mob and the media and his fellow Democrats are complicit, and they were complicit every step of the way. Instead of working to combat government abuse of power and corruption, Schiff chose to bolster his own publicity at the risk of innocent people whose lives were destroyed. Instead of upholding his oath of office, he lied again and again. It was a coup attempt, conspiracy theory to unseat a duly elected president. And by the way, after they couldn't prevent him from getting elected because we, the people, didn't listen to them. He lied about an innocent man, protected those who were truly guilty. They worked together, they coordinated. Now, make no mistake, history will not be kind to this pathetic idiot from California's 28th congressional district.